Today, let's talk about a Cinderella club, a club that defied all odds and one of the best stories in sports in general in the last couple decades. Let's talk about Leicester City. Even though Leicester have been around since the late 19th century, making them one of the oldest association football clubs in all of England, they really burst into everybody's living rooms in 2015-2016 when, against all odds, specifically 5,000 to 1 odds, they won the English Premier League title. And to give you some perspective on how absurd that really seems, every single season, the worst, crappiest NFL team usually goes off at about 300-1 odds to win the Super Bowl. The way they went about winning this title was also very special in its own right because they didn't have a wide range of very well-known players at the time. They did this on counter-attacking talent with blistering pace through an almost unknown striker named Jamie Vardy, who's still with the club, who seemed to almost score at will. He actually went on a stretch of 11 straight games, scoring at least 1 goal, which is now and then a league record. He formed an incredible attacking and creative partnership with this man here, Riyad Mahrez, who was the PFA's Player of the Year that season when he knocked in 17 goals and 11 assists, which are huge numbers for a player at a club that the previous season was fighting off relegation. And finally, the Foxes, as they're known because Leicestershire is a big area for fox hunting, were able to back all this up because they're very solid in defense. They had an incredible spine through the middle with a defensive midfielder named N'Golo Kante, who's moved to Chelsea, who was able to pretty much take the ball off of anybody. In defense, they had Wes Morgan, who was their captain and a stalwart and a great leader. And finally, Kasper Schmeichel, who as their goalkeeper has just finished up his 11th year at the club. As a sign of respect for such an incredible achievement, I grabbed their home kit from the following season, of which you can see they added a lot of gold touches as a sign of their title. Leicester have stabilized themselves into a very solid Premier League team. The following season, they had a great run in the Champions League, and since then, they have been able to draw in and develop a lot of good talent that has replaced a lot of the players that were on that title-winning team. Because of the performances they had, they moved on to other clubs. A lot of the success also has to be attributed to the club's ownership group. You can see it says King Power on their kit. That's also the name on their stadium. It's the company of the ownership group who are well loved in the community, which can be a rarity because not a lot of clubs have such a close affinity with the owners of their club if they're not locals. There really is a deep connection between this ownership group and the people of Leicester. Unfortunately, their leader died in a tragic helicopter accident a couple years ago, and his son took over in the wake of it. Look for a revival of the East Midlands derby that is really clutch between them and Nottingham Forest, since they have just come back into the Premier League for the first time this century. The current players in the squad, I've already mentioned that Kasper Schmeichel as well as Jamie Vardy are still there, having spent a decade each at the club. And the third player I want to mention is Patson Daka, who is a Zambian, one of 6 to have ever played in the Premier League, and a guy that seems to score in bunches. So that's your first rundown on Leicester City. They had a bit of a down year this last season, but I expect they're going to move up the table to build on previous success.